Hello guys, Russia is very easy to predict. Every time they have some problems on the front lines in Ukraine or front lines in Russia, because that is their new reality, or for example, when they are preparing for the negotiations, they start threatening the world. And the most typical strategy is to test their intercontinental ballistic missiles. And this time they want to test one in Sverdlovsk region, that is intercontinental ballistic missile Yars that can reach 10,000 kilometers away from the testing site. But as an experienced Ukrainian, I advise you to have a closer look at that very Sverdlovsk region, because during the majority of their tests, these ballistic missiles typically explode on the site of the testing. Well, I don't mind, because that is also the demilitarization of Russia, or should I say self-demilitarization of Russia. If you have missed Oreshnik, they also want to test it during some training in the satellite country of the Russian Federation, Belarus, perhaps aiming to frighten NATO countries, the Baltics, and they know they cannot frighten Ukraine. Honestly, I believe everyone sees of these rational politicians, clever people, that Russia cannot conquer Ukraine. And they simply try to threaten the world and to influence the coverts. And I'm worried that we have one with a lot of instruments of power in the White House. So perhaps these missiles are more targeted on the impressions and fears that Donald Trump can experience. But in general, an attentive observer can clearly see that this week was a week of the open Russian failures and very vivid vulnerabilities. So let's discuss all of that together. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the collapse of the Kremlin, loud, beautiful, subscribe. We will talk about that on the channel sometime really soon, because dictatorships may seem resilient, may seem under total control, and then collapse in a day or two. What a beautiful day or two that will be. So according to the reports coming from Russia, they are preparing to test, and I cannot say a new intercontinental ballistic missiles, because they don't have new. They test old Soviet crap redeveloped in the times of the Russian Federation, simply to show these muscles of the Frankenstein. So these tests will take place in Sverdlovsk region of the Russian Federation. They will test Yars missile, and it can travel, according to the Russian beliefs, 10,000 kilometers, thus threatening the United States, Australia, and the world. But typically they fly like 10 kilometers and land loudly, or how Russian propagandists often describe any failures or attacks of the Ukrainian drones, or when they drop bombs on their own cities, they say it's accidental descendings. They also want to test Oreshnik during trainings in Belarus. I believe these one are aimed to frighten people in the Baltics, because that's how they see the realities on the land. But I'm sure you remember that threats with Oreshnik, they even targeted one on Dnipro, but it failed. It totally failed, because it did not bring anything extraordinary. Let's be realistic. Of course, every drone, every missile, that's a tragedy, that's an evil, but they did not reach the expected level of fear or devastation. And second, fear is not a decisive factor here in Ukraine, and I'm actually very proud of that, because we know if we allow Russia to get more Ukrainian territories, to occupy people, schools, and hospitals, will lose way more than during this brave fight that actually demonstrates tremendous success. And right now, not only Russia controls less of the Ukrainian territories than it did in 2022, but less of the Russian territories. Unfortunately, Trump keeps forgetting about that while speaking about Taylor Swift's shape. Oh my God, that was so pathetic. And after he shared that AI video of him on a stadium making a concert, that was just like Trump wants to be Taylor Swift. Anyway, this was an interesting week, and subscribe and share these videos to help spread the truth about Ukraine. That is important. This week I visited the Lviv Media Forum, and we were talking about traditional and non-traditional media, and I have come to this conclusion that social media are actually traditional now, because all of us get the information mainly from there. And I was happy to see on X, you may follow me there, photos of President Zelensky meeting with the new Pope, whose inauguration took place today. It was so beautiful, and I like this new Pope a lot. I hope it will not change and his attitude will not change. He is brave, he is very simple in the way he talks with people, and he's got some John Paul vibes. Many discuss that. And for me, John Paul II was an exemplary Pope, and maybe now Pope Leo will try to speak the truth and not equate a victim to an aggressor. And Zelensky also met with Vance, and they were smiling and shaking hands, but we all know the truth. Unfortunately, pretending that you like each other is a part of politics. This week, Putin also had to sack his chief of land forces of the Russian army. And that is not an example of success. First of all, it happened after that general occupied that position since 2014. And after he organized a Moscow parade, which was hosted not by Putin, but by his master, Xi Jinping. And that was so obvious this time. That was so Chinese. And Putin sacked that general, perhaps not just because of the failures in Ukraine, because despite what Russian trolls want to leave in comments, we see Russians are not able to move. And if we compare that to the losses that they experienced, so this war is a total failure, but they are also not very good on the grounds inside Russia. And with more air defense and arsenals destroyed in Crimea, which happened the night before, that is a good sign that they will have more and more problems, and Crimea has to return to Ukraine. This land has suffered too much from the Moscow regimes, both now and in times of the Soviet Union, and today we commemorate the deportation of Crimean Tatars. These are beautiful people with vibrant culture, with beautiful language. They are beautiful and they are a part of Ukraine, and they were deported to Far East, to Siberia by the Stalin's regime and by the Soviet regime. All this, and it was very symbolic that President Zelensky sent a prisoner of war who was released this June in 2024 as a new ambassador to Turkey, and he is Crimean Tatar who did not want to leave the peninsula and protected the rights of the Crimean people. He was, of course, caught by the Russians. He spent years in the captivity and was liberated in 2024. And I remember that exchange. It was very beautiful to see him alive, sane, productive. And now that person is the ambassador of Ukraine to Turkey. Turkey plays an important role right now in the negotiations. I do understand that Erdogan is not a democratic leader. And he did this very weird thing with Macron, like holding his pinky or something. What was that? Like demonstration of power? But if you're so worried about power, you don't need to do that. Maybe I misread that. If you know the real meaning for that, and if you saw the video, let me know in the comments below what it means from your perspective. But these negotiations in Istanbul, they were totally fake, and it's super obvious. And, they sent a very funny delegation from the Russian side that does not have any rights, anything. And they kept threatening, saying really bad words to the Ukrainian delegation, very disrespectful, and wanted us to return back to these fake papers of 2022, which we cannot name any like ceasefire agreement or negotiation agreement, but simple capitulation of Ukraine. And once again, there is no need for us to sign a capitulation when we actually control parts of 2 Russian regions. Very different from what we experienced back in 2022. And here I need to remind you again that Trump is very wrong when he says that Putin did not take Kyiv in 3 days because of mud. These were great people doing unbelievable things to destroy the plans of the Russian army. And I loved one meme today of the burning and sinking warship Moskva and the destroyed Black Sea Fleet. Was that also mud? Remember to like it. That's very important. You see that social media influence public opinion and political opinion a lot. Also, this was a week of beautiful updates from the Russian economic frontline. And typically I avoid saying frontline about anything but the real combat zone because that's uncomparable. But I do believe that economy can destroy Russia even faster than long-range missiles. This is what happened back in the 90s when the Soviet Union collapsed. As a small child, my preschool years, I believe this. I remember this very long queues to get some vegetables or some butter. I remember standing for hours with my mom and a hand rising up because like she was holding me, and it was cold and it was long. And that was the state of the Soviet economy that destroyed it so fast. And it will happen to Russia, because right now we know that Putin forbid to share this information about the state of their income, and they are super worried about the oil prices. They had to rewrite their budget, understanding that oil prices are falling and that they won't be able to get the revenue they expected, and they actually put into their budget. So they had to extract like 25%, and that's a lot with all the war effort. Plus, an important signal, an important symptom was coming from Gazprom when their CEO claimed they need some changes in the taxation because Russia ran out of these cheap oil deposits, and the ones that are left are really difficult to develop, to maintain, located far away and somewhat deep. So it's not economically efficient to continue doing that. And Russia is nothing but a gas station with mafia at the top. So it will devastate their already collapsing economy, and this can happen any moment. So our task is to continue this, as some beautiful people here in Ukraine say, war for Trump. It's not that we believe he can get some morals, but we have to prevent him from lifting sanctions from Russia and in different ways interfere his plans of helping Putin out. That's the priority and that's the task right now, and I believe that's exactly what the Coalition of the Willing is doing, why Zelensky is meeting with Vance and all that people. And I hope that the Pope will help us with that, and all the good people. And you are doing it every day when you watch these videos, when you share these videos, when you comment, when you speak with your relatives, when you write to your representatives, when you donate, when you simply remember that Russia must be defeated. That is the only working peace plan. Remember to check my new video on a new channel where I tell you more about the minerals in Ukraine from an ordinary Ukrainian, remembering my school geography lessons. It was actually interesting to discover what we have are these rare ass minerals, and why is that all in the center of attention right now. So do check the video and subscribe to that new channel. We can reach 10,000 friends there, and it will be a great and interesting thing. Also follow me on X, on Blue Sky, on Threads, on Discord and Instagram. I share more of my everyday life there. Remember to check the merch shop. The link is in the description of this video. You can get a lot of nice products that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. But most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!